Hello, witches. Hello, mystics. Leandra here. I am coming to you kind of off the cuff. I wasn't planning this episode, so I have really not much prepared for it. This episode is coming from a conversation I was just having with my son about the state of the world, about everything that we're experiencing, all the trauma, firsthand, secondhand, that we're all witnessing. And in our conversation, we were talking about religious trauma and how everything that is happening is deeply embedded in the Christian religion. And the quote unquote, air quotes, values that Christians imposed on the rest of the world, and those in power imposed on the rest of the world. And as we were talking about my experience in the church, he stopped and looked at me and said, "Mom, I gotta go to school. This should be a podcast episode." And I'm like, okay, you're right. So here I am. I'm sitting down after dropping him off at school to talk about my experience, to share that with everybody. If you've been following me for any amount of time, the Magic Kitchen, the Witchwood Tea House, LeandraWitchwood.com, all the things that I have done, you probably have heard me in passing somewhere about how I used to be a Christian missionary for a number of years. And this experience is what led me to leave the church because I saw the corruption. I tried to question the corruption. I tried to question my elders, my ministers, my pastors, asking them, why are there so many hypocrisies, not contradictions? Now, there's one thing about being contradictory, being multifaceted, and there's embedded absolutely in hypocrisy. And that's what I was seeing. That's what I was experiencing. Let me start at the beginning. My entire life, I was raised in the Catholic Church and in the Christian church. This is pretty much all I knew. And of course, I was raised with the narrative that anybody who does not believe the Christian way, the Bible, who is not saved or born again, is somehow inherently evil. And this message became incredibly evident in my teenage years when I was a missionary. I would travel all over the world as a missionary. And I noticed the message we were being given had this direct link, and it was just so laced with all this hate that if they out there, whoever is out there, the people we were preaching to, the people we were encountering, we spoke to, anybody we encountered, if they did not believe what we believed, they were the devil. They were evil, just for that simple fact. Not because they did anything wrong, not because they acted in a hateful way or an evil way, simply because they did not choose to accept Jesus Christ as their savior. And saying that because it was such a narrative, I feel it in my body. I feel that pull backward, a clenching, a sickness, because now it makes me sick when I hear people say that. It makes me sick when people are so adamant. And I see where they're coming from because I lived it. I almost fell down that rabbit hole. I almost fell into that endless pit of hate and despair and us versus them mentality. And one of the questions when I was in high school, late high school, so almost adulthood, right before I left the church, one of the questions I kept asking that would never get answered, would always get bypassed, was around the idea that the devil, the Christian idea of the devil, was clever, right? He's so clever. He would make you think that what you're doing is right, that you're doing the right thing, that you're helping people. And I stopped in this lesson because this was a lesson that was often taught. This particular day, I stopped my pastor in the lesson. I said, wait, okay. And this was after me examining the language that I was being taught and what was being infused into my psyche as a very impressionable teenager in this Christian environment, this good and proper environment. And the idea that we were spouting hate, yet we were the righteous ones, right? We were the ones that were righteous. So I challenged that. And in my opinion, if you believe in something and you cannot be challenged in it, then there's a flaw there that you're not willing to recognize. Then your belief has holes in it. It's Swiss cheese, and you're not looking at why it's Swiss cheese. So I challenged my pastor. I said, wait. So if the devil is clever, if these demonic presences are so clever that they would lead us to believe we are right, that we are justified in doing what we're doing, that we're walking the righteous path, then what makes us think here and now, following God, following the teachings of Jesus Christ, following this Bible, what makes us think that's the right path? What makes us think we're not being led astray right now, right here and now? What makes us think we're not being led astray? And of course, it was shut down. Oh, you have to have faith. Just have faith. Just have faith. So there was really no addressing it. It was bypassing it. And the more I brought that up, the more bypassing I would get, and more my pastors and church leaders would get angry with me for challenging the philosophy, that theology, and tell me, oh, you just got to have faith. You just have to have faith. Okay, yeah, great. I would love to have faith if the theology didn't have a bunch of holes in it, if the hypocrisy wasn't so evident. And in light of the Epstein files, in light of the realization of how evil these ultra rich billionaires are, and of course, like the whole narrative of it's not all men, it's not all billionaires. I don't know. If it's enough of them to make you question, then there's an issue there. And not enough of the good ones are stepping up to stop it. That's my 2 cents on that. But anyway, so in light of sex trafficking, underage manipulation, and the idea that these girls being forced, for one, to do what they had to do. And then some people putting that narrative in there, not defending them, but telling the rest of the world that they knew what they were doing, that they enjoyed it, that they wanted whatever came out of it. And that's bullshit. I really know that's bullshit. Because when you don't have a well-developed prefrontal cortex, you're not thinking rationally. You can't account for all the consequences. And you can't articulate the manipulation if you don't realize it exists. So let me explain my experience in this. So in my time in the church, it was a big group of us, a really big group of us. And we spent a lot of time together. And so because there were so many teenagers, we also had chaperones or a parental, I don't know what you want to call them. I'm going to call them watchers, but they're not watchers. That's a see how far removed I am. I'm now in my witchcraft terminology. Watchers. They're like chaperones, really. They were there to make sure that we were behaving ourselves. Well, one of our chaperones, our babysitters, was a man in his 40s who had a wife and 2 children. And I never paid him any mind. Most of the girls paid him no mind because he was actually kind of gross. He gave us a vibe that we didn't like. But he managed to woo my best friend at the time. And here's some background on my best friend. I will not use her name. She was the youngest daughter in a 2-daughter family. And she was the frumpy one. She was the one that nobody in her family really praised. She didn't get the greatest grades. Her sister, her older sister, was the pretty one, was the graceful one, was the smart one, was the valedictorian, all that stuff. Her older sister, the oldest daughter, was the one that was the favorite. It was clear in that family. So when this man, this church elder, who was supposed to be accounting for our care and well-being, began doting on her, of course, she lapped that up. She was getting the love and attention, perceived love and attention from this man, this grown ass man, that she wasn't getting from home. She wasn't getting it from her family. He made her feel important and beautiful. And to be honest, she wasn't ugly. She should never have felt less than. But she did, because our culture tells us we need to look a certain way. Our society tells us, every magazine tells us you need to look a certain way. And a lot of us, I think, are realizing and waking up to the fact that current beauty standards very much mirror the preferences of the pedophile. From shaving in certain places to making yourself looking as young as possible. The whole schoolgirl outfit fetish, that one always gave me the ick. Always. And good reason. Even though I couldn't articulate it as a kid, I understood it. I understood it was not right. It was gross. Still is. So anyway, I digress. Looking back at this relationship between my best friend and this man in his 40s, a father, a husband. And keep in mind, his wife was right there. She was right there with us, with their 2 children, helping get us ready for things, making sure we were fed, we had water, whatever. She was right there. She was doing the labor of it while he was grooming children to be his sexual partners. And that's exactly what happened. And then when it came out in the church, when it was revealed, guess who was shamed in it? Not him. He wasn't punished. He wasn't put away in jail. He wasn't crucified. No, it was my best friend, the 16-year-old, the child. She was the one who was shamed. How dare she not know better, right? That's the narrative. Oh, she knew what she was doing. I don't think so. And the sad thing is it still haunts her to this day. We're 30 years out, more than 30 years out. And another friend of mine, my other best friend at the time, tried reaching out to her. And she will not speak to any of us who were a part of that whole group. It still haunts her. It still damages her. So these things are not something to take lightly. And I know it's hard. I know it's really hard for us to look at the state of the world and be okay, to go on with life, to live life. And for some of us who have been sexually traumatized or groomed by an adult who should have known better, who did know better, it's hard to watch and not feel the rage, the anger, the hate, the sickness. It literally makes you feel sick in your body. And it's overwhelming. We're all overwhelmed, rightly so. Because this is the systemic issue. We have been told for decades now that we have to behave a certain way. We have to work hard, be good people. Your morality is directly linked to your prosperity, right? That's the message. And here we are looking at these people, these horrible people, these disgusting people doing disgusting things. living in the lap of luxury with no consequence. They're not being arrested. They're not being prosecuted. They're not being removed from public office. They're still there where they have always been. And you can't tell me that the whole system that Epstein built just went away because he was in jail. Personally, I don't think he's actually dead. I think whatever cover up happened in the jail he was in and the van that supposedly took him away, I don't think he was in that. I think he's still alive somewhere. That's my opinion. That's my conspiracy theory. But so far, my conspiracy theories have been right. And my intuition is what's guiding me now. Because through all these messagings, this systemic messaging that we've gotten from the church, that we've gotten from beauty companies, from magazines, from social media, from advertising, whatever it is, whatever messaging comes through us, it's breaking down. And we are now realizing that we've been fed a lie, that being good, honest, hardworking does not amount to anything in this world. So I guess it's our choice now. Do we make it matter? Do we make it amount to something? Or do we fall down the trap? I don't agree with that. I think our morals and ethics are what set us apart from these horrible people. Whether that makes us rich or not, that doesn't matter. Not about wealth. It's about living with a clear conscience and not doing disgusting things to people who can't defend themselves. Because how many of these victims cried out, trying to warn everybody, trying to expose it, and they were dismissed as crazy, delusional? How many disappeared? They died. Mysterious causes, right? So there's something to be said that when the wrong people hold all the power, there is absolute corruption. Isn't that the saying? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is the example of it. This is the absolute epitome of it. And there's nothing we can do except stand firm in our own beliefs, stand firm in our own place of knowing what is right and wrong, and not do what they're doing, not accept it, speak out against it, ensure that our intuition is guiding us. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I'm learning from this is I am trusting my intuition more and more now. And it's been a long road trying to reestablish that communication line. Because what the system has done is it's done a very good job at cutting us off from our own intuition, our own inner knowing, by making us believe that we can't trust ourselves. And looking at the systemic problem, it started not all that long ago with exposing the Catholic Church and their disgusting dark shadows of pedophilia and you name it. I mean, the church has done so many atrocities. And then, of course, as our culture is heavily influenced by the church, yeah, it makes sense that we would also have these billionaires that do horrific things while sitting in the lap of luxury and telling the rest of us that we're the problem. So on a metaphysical level, so that was kind of the social, economic, and political look at where we are right now and my thoughts and feelings on it. Let's look at it as a metaphysical stance. So, like I said, when I was in church, when I was a missionary, I would question, how do we know? How do we know that as Christians, that we were not the devils, that we were not in the wrong? How do we know? And that was the question that I would get bypassed on all the time. I would get, pushed off and told that I was being too dramatic. um, I'm looking at the Christian mythology. I'm looking at the Christian ideals of things. And I'm looking at the hypocrisy that is this whole ball of wax. And looking at the evils that are created under their God's name. And I mean, this goes across the board. Most monotheistic religions are very hell-bent. They're very warlike. They're very angry. They're very controlling. Absolute authoritarianism. And then the people who follow that suit. They follow that road. And that embeds itself into our culture. It's heartbreaking. Because there's so many shadows there that are showing up on the surface. But metaphysically, if we're looking at Christians, devils, angels, good spirits, bad spirits, I really believe that Christianity is the true devil worship. And I've heard people call what is happening in the Epstein files with these billionaires eating babies. I still can't wrap my head around that. It's so disgusting. But the idea that the witches, especially, and the devils were the ones who would corrupt and eat babies, right? And yet here we are. These people who claim superiority, who curate the narrative of what good and evil is, are the exact ones doing these atrocious things that only devils should do, demons, whatever you want to call them. So it's not the witches. No. It's those who claim superiority, those who claim that they're Christian, Catholic, the superior, the master race. That one also gets me. The whole racism thing. It's a whole other ball game here. This idea that it's us versus them, the us versus them mentality. And it comes from Christianity, from monotheistic beliefs, because that is the narrative that is absolutely taught. If they're not with us, they're against us. If they're not with us, then they are the evil ones. And when I left the church and I found my way to witchcraft, it was a long road because I studied a lot before I got here. I studied Buddhism, Taoism, everything until I found Wicca. And I'll tell you the story of how I got into researching it. And from my Christian background, keep in mind, I was very, very adamant that this was devil worship, right? So my sister and I were kind of doing a tandem exploration because we're both at that point where we're like, we are done with monotheism. We're done, especially with the Christian faith, because that's what we grew up in. And we're recognizing we're deconstructing it. We're unlearning these lessons, these mindsets that were being taught to us. So we were doing a lot of research together, spending time at the library. This is when the internet was just brand new. So we were able to do a lot of research in that aspect. And one day we're driving home from the grocery store. Groceries are in the back. And we pull up in front of our apartment. And my sister says, well, what about Wicca? And I'm like, what the hell is Wicca? I had never heard of it at this point. She's like, oh, it's like earth-based religion. And then she goes into explain it further. I'm like, no, that's devil worship. And as soon as she stopped the car, I got out, left the groceries behind, slammed the door, and went into the house. I would not speak to her. This is how ingrained the whole idea of anything but Christianity was devil worship was so ingrained in my head. Now I can laugh at it. So, of course, this is how I do. I throw a tantrum, I blow up, and then I'm like, okay, I'm over that. Now let me soften and let me lean into this. Let me research it. Let me explore. So I started exploring it. And that's when I was like, crap, this is where I'm supposed to be. Earth-based religion. This is where I'm supposed to be. And that's when I started studying Wicca. Now that I've been practicing for roughly 30 years. I consider myself a mix between Wicca and a witch, folk practitioner, that sort of thing. I'm eclectic. That's the right word for it. I'm eclectic. I pull from different aspects of my cultural background, from my Reiki training, from my vitalist herbalist and master herbalist training. So most of it is, personal gnosis. I can go out and I can sense what the tree, what it's saying, what it's feeling, what the land is doing, what the plants are doing. And this is where trusting my intuition has become more paramount in all of this. And me realizing how much of this narrative, this cultural, this social, socioeconomic narrative has really embedded itself into us. That we have to look a certain way, we have to be a certain weight, we have to eat a certain way, we have to like certain things. And with that, it really became a struggle trying to deconstruct and unlearn all this stuff. So I never really enjoyed shopping. I never really enjoyed hanging out at malls. And of course, I am a Gen X, so hanging out at malls was the thing. I would rather be running through the woods. I'd rather sit under a tree, read a book, listen to music, or just listen to the birds, listen to the trees speak. But under the narrative of the monotheistic, patriarchal system that we're in that is collapsing around us, and thank God it's collapsing, those kinds of things were not accepted. You're too weird to do that, right? If you do that, you're the outcast. There's something wrong with you. And of course, I grew up in the satanic panic. I remember that clearly. I remember feeling like a rebel because we wanted to play D&D. Ooh, I'm breaking some rules here, but I really wasn't breaking any rules. It really wasn't evil. It was just a game. It was theater of the mind, and it still is, and it's so much fun. You get to be somebody else for a little while, or maybe you get to play out a piece of your personality you're not allowed to reveal very often, a piece of who you are. Because none of us are flat. We're not one way or another. We're not light or dark. We are multifaceted. And that's something that the patriarchy, that Christianity, monotheistic beliefs typically do not honor in people. They don't want you to be multifaceted because if that were true, you're not so easy to manipulate. If you refuse to fit into the cookie cutter, the little box they want to put you in, they can't control you. And that is the whole premise of these religions, of this mindset, of the backbone that has been created for our way of living. You work, you pay your bills, and you die, right? You're there to serve the system. And this is where we really get mixed up in how do we spend our money and our time, right? Because we're taught, oh, you're bored, go shopping. Go buy useless things that'll end up in a landfill. Go buy things that your kids will never want. And when you die, they'll have to donate it or trash it, right? Rack up debt, work your entire life to pay off that debt. But somehow, if you work hard enough, then you'll live a great life, but only for a little while because you can't retire till you're 65 and you might, you might get 10, 20 good years out of that, out of your retirement, right? So you're working 50 to enjoy 20. And I think these are the messages, the narratives that we are all waking up to and we're trying to resolve. And this narrative of children being exploited, of race and cultural background being a place to manipulate people, or that somehow there's a superior race, is such bullshit. We should find our humanity again. And that's a huge thing that we're seeing right now, blowing wide open of how many people do not have their humanity. And how many men in our culture truly hate women. And this is a realization I've been making for probably about 10 years in my own relationship, is how much men really hate women. And raising my son, like I said, this whole thing started with my son. So I'm going to circle back to our conversation. We have conversations like this all the time. He and I have been in therapy together since he was 5. And those years of work, they pay off. They really pay off. When you do the work, it really pays off. When you take a look at yourself and what you believe, and you're willing to challenge your beliefs, that work pays off. I'm very proud of my son. He is emotionally intelligent, and he teaches me every day how I can be more emotionally intelligent, how I can be more conscious of other people. And of course, being Pisces, my own my own chart, I'm double Pisces. So I'm very, very tuned into things. I've always been very aware of other people, how they're feeling. But because I wasn't tuned into my own intuition, I always thought it was my feelings that I was feeling. So that would get messy and mixed up. But through the work that I've done on myself and with my son, we can sit down and we can have really tough conversations. We can have conversations about things that would send most family members stomping out the door. And I'm so proud that he and I can sit down and talk about race. We can talk about sexual orientation. We can talk about the rights of people. We can talk about the injustices. And we can pose challenging questions to each other while allowing each other to digest those challenging questions. Not in a sense that, I'm forcing him to believe what I believe. And there's the big difference is I don't force him to believe what I believe. I challenge him to challenge his own thinking, and he challenges me to challenge my own thinking. And that's where we should be at a society, as a culture. That's how we know we evolve. When we can enter in difficult conversations and each party can take a step back going, okay, I see your point. Here's mine. Now let's deconstruct that. And I'm not sure exactly where I was going with this episode. Just I wanted to share some perspectives. I recognize horrible things are happening. And for me, this is a time where I dive even deeper into my spiritual path, my witchcraft journey, where spell work is created to fortify myself and those around me. If you've been participating in the Rebel Mystic Coven, that's exactly what we've been doing. We started in January with knot and cord magic to anchor prosperity to us. February, we are in the Heart Fire Forge, where we are recognizing our sacred desires, our holy desires. And then March, we're looking at the verdant serpent, primordial energy, shedding what doesn't serve us and growing a new skin. So whenever I am challenged to grow, to question my beliefs, I automatically bring that out to the world, to my students. And the most recent addition to that have been the witchcraft skill trees, where that's more fortifying just your basic skills, your basic understanding, so that you come from a more grounded space. And the Witch's Reset. I created this one because I needed a reset. I was going through a 10-day program that really challenged me. It had me reeling on day 7. But it also led me to an epiphany that if I'm reeling So are others. And how do I serve the community in the best possible way that I know how? And the Witch's Reset is a 5-day reset because 10 days is whoa. And this one helps you reestablish a baseline for your own practice so that you can lean in more and make room for your practice. And that's where a lot of my programs are developed, is through the challenges I face in the world, because I know if I'm being challenged, if I'm feeling challenged, if I'm feeling upset and distraught, I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone. There's many of you out there too who feel lost, who feel disconnected, disjointed, and you need a place to land. And I hope you found it here. I hope you find it through this podcast, find it through my community. There is a free community space if you'd like to join. Through all the chaos, through all the upset that we are experiencing, I want to leave you with this. This is not a time to hide. It's a time to do the best you can with what you have, with whatever energy reserves you have, with whatever capacity you have to show up and be supportive of yourself first. Fortify yourself. And then try to help others. Help others make sense of what's going on. And when you feel overwhelmed, it's okay to step back. Self-care needs to be number one in all of this. Because if we're not taking care of ourselves, we cannot take care of the collective. And our collective is very important right now. Our communities are so important right now. We need support systems. We need to be able to support each other. However that looks in your community, however that looks in your paradigm for you. Maybe it's just sending someone an encouraging message. Or maybe it's reminding yourself that you are valuable, that you are worthy. And I'm here for that 100%. So I will leave you with that. Good luck out there. And I hope to see you in the coven. Blessed be.